Kia ora, good morning. Welcome to the Eye in the Sky Show podcast. So it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Why am I up at 4 o'clock in the morning? Because I had a dream that I was sitting looking at Mount Fuji, and in the dream, Mount Fuji spoke to me and it said, "Do me next. Be my voice. Be a voice for us." So I woke up and I thought, right, I need to look into Mount Fuji now. If you know my story and you know my history, I have always maintained that when my boys and I go out to make our shows, one of the places that we have to visit is Mount Fuji because of the Aokigahara Forest. And the Aokigahara Forest, I apologise to anyone in Japan who's listening to this if I pronounce any of your beautiful language wrong, but I'm doing my best. The Aokigahara Forest is the suicide forest, and I have always said that I want to go there to cleanse the area. And after doing the research that I've just done after my dream into Mount Fuji and the Aokigahara Forest, I'm even more determined now than ever to go there with my biorhythmic field generator, because I'm going to know exactly what to do and how to set my BFG to help the souls of this mountain cross over and find peace, and with any luck deter other people from going there, from doing what they're doing. Now, I'm going to apologise in advance because I do not turn my lights on because I'm trying to save as much money as I can. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I am reading from some scribbled notes that I wrote at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm using nothing for light but a small lamp. So I'm in a barely lit bedroom at 4 o'clock in the morning trying to read scribbled notes with a dimly lit light beside me. So I may stutter and stammer and make some mistakes when I'm reading out my notes, but please just bear with me, because once I get my radio show, my radio station, I will pre-record most of my podcasts to edit out any mistakes that I make. I will be able to re-edit, everything to make it sound more professional. But, I'm just doing this ad hoc at the moment. I'm just, it's all just on the fly. I'm an intuitive podcaster, and because of this dream, this is important to me. The subject matter, the reason why I am doing this podcast is a matter that's very close to my heart. I have lost people to the effects of them taking their own life, but more importantly as well, I have also had to deal with the aftermath and fallout of the consequences of the actions of people who have chosen to do this, because my work as an occult scientist, and back in the day when I used to do readings and that, I have come across a lot of people who have either contemplated it or had to deal with the aftermath of having someone who went ahead with it, including people who have come to me to ask me to work on cases for loved ones where they thought it was murder and not suicide, and they would give me the coroner's reports and the crime scene photos and ask me, to give my honest opinion on whether I thought, it was murder, or, because a lot of people, I think, would rather, nobody would like to think that their loved one chose to end their own life, and that if there was a better explanation, like it was an accident or someone took their life, it helps them grieve better, because you carry the guilt that these people carry with them after their child or their loved one or their sibling have ended their life. It carries a heaviness that they can never release. The guilt that they feel, I should have said this, I should have done this, what if I had been a better parent? What if I'd been a better lover, a better sister, a better this, a better that, and then they come to me and I help them through it. Also, again, like I said, I help a lot of people who are contemplating it as well, because I am an ascension master and I understand what happens when people take trips to the underworld and go through their dark nights of the soul, that sort of thing. My work as an occult scientist has far-reaching consequences beyond the paranormal and the supernatural. It also deals with the psychological effects of life and the karmic debt that we carry over from past lives, and the inner childhood woundings that need healing, the primal scream, um, childhood traumas, irrational fears from past life deaths, and all that sort of thing. Like, I deal with the whole kit and caboodle of the evolution of life and death and everything in between, the recycling of life and the reinvention of life, and reincarnation and all that sort of thing. That's my whole, as an evolutionary theorist, the process of life and death is everything that I study and understand as an occult scientist. And I like to always have answers for people. And of course, when the internet came about and people started becoming aware of the Aokigahara Forest and what people were doing there, it drew a lot of interest from people, rightly and wrongly. And the rates of the activity that happened there increased. People have paranormal experiences there, and if you look at Japanese history and their lifestyle and the high pressure and high demands that the people have there to work long hours and spend long hours at school, it is taxing, it is grueling, it is heartbreaking. It's one of the reasons why their population is decreasing, because nobody's wanting to get married and have children because they're working too many hours, because the high pressure and high demands of being a high earner and being like almost perfect. Basically, you're expected to be perfect, and that's a lot of pressure for a country that has such high demands on its people. And it's devastating, and Japan is such a beautiful country with such a beautiful culture. And if this podcast can help the people of Japan understand why they're doing some of the things they're doing and what they can do to stop it and better themselves so that they choose to enjoy life and live life and embrace it, then it was well worth being woken up for at 3 o'clock in the morning to scribble down these notes. So this is what I discovered, and it's going to explain a lot, and it's also going to help me a lot when I take my biorhythmic field generator there to cross over anything that's trapped and cleanse the area, cleanse the mountain. And I will be able to do the mountain with my BFG, because it's all about frequency and electromagnetic frequencies, and the transmutation of energy biometrically and biomagnetically. And when I read all of this out, you're going to understand completely why this mountain's called me, because it's going to be perfect for using my BFG there. I'm going to know exactly what to do and how to fix it because of what I discovered. This is what I discovered. The Aokigahara Forest is in the northwest flank of Mount Fuji. Mount Fuji is, the Aokigahara Forest is made up of a layer of hardened lava and porous rocks, and these porous rocks are known to absorb sound. Mount Fuji is a dormant volcano that last erupted about 300 years ago, which is comprised mostly of basalt. Basalt is used in my ancestors' pyramids, and also the Untersberg mountain yesterday in my podcast. Basalt was found there. Basalt is used, like I said, along with limestone in the construction of the pyramids in Egypt and Giza. And I maintain that the pyramids are a giant biorhythmic field generator, a primitive biorhythmic field generator, and I'm condensing that into a basically like a handheld version that I'm going to use to be able to do what I do for the dead, which is what I believe the pyramids, why my ancestors built the pyramids, so that my ancestors that were buried in them would be able to help the living from beyond the veil. So it has a reputation for being the home of the ghosts of the dead, or the Yurai. I hope I pronounced that right. The Yurai, the Yurai. I apologise if I've pronounced that wrong. I'm so scared of getting it wrong for you. Yeah, so the Yurai means like ghosts of the dead. It's the home for the ghosts of the dead, because it's, it's a magnet for calling souls to it and keeping souls there. The Japanese believe that when you die, your soul goes to Mount Fuji, and your ancestors are waiting to call you there, to take you to the afterworld, which explains a lot, and will explain even more when I tell you what else I found. The Aokigahara Forest, or there's it provides drinking water to millions of people via groundwater and freshwater springs there, which are comprised of 3 basalt aquifers. Mount Fuji is made up of a complex geology and its unusual microbial spring water combination, because it's high in vanadium and helium. So people are drinking this water from the springs that are made of basalt that are high in vanadium and helium. Now, the interesting thing is that vanadium, which is a malleable transition metal, it's really found in nature, and a transitional metal or transition metal means that it's good for electrical and thermal conductivity. And vanadium is toxic. While it is a naturally occurring element widely distributed on Earth's crust, it's used as used in rust-resistant tools and ceramics, which the Japanese are famous for. It is a catalyst as well as used in the production of superconductive magnets. So remember, I was saying, Mount Fuji is basically a massive electromagnetic conductor of energy that calls souls to it, and holds energy as well. So when people are going there to end their lives, they're being called to the mountain by the ancestors who are trapped there, who also ended their lives, or whose lives ended on the mountain. Because it is a highly conductive mountain, it is absorbing the energy of the souls who were lost there, and it is drawing the people of the same vibration. If it is holding death, it is calling death. Do you see what I mean? And that's not what the mountain wants. It's not the mountain's fault that a lot of people die on that mountain. A lot of people, like for centuries, there's burials and shrines all over Mount Fuji, because of the fact that it has such a high death count. It has such a high connectivity to death, and it's not what the mountain wants to be known for. The mountain wants to be known as a conductor for healing, which is, some of the more positive aspects of the geological composition of that mountain. It wants to be known as a healer of life, and not one that takes away from life. And I think that's why it called to me in the dream, because I if I can educate people and I can go there with my BFG and help do something about it, then Mount Fuji will have a more positive effect on the people there rather than a detrimental one. And then people won't be drawn to go there to end their life. They'll be drawn to go there to recreate their life and rebuild their life and go through, a massive energetic transformation psychologically, because it will change their composition neuropathically or neurologically. And I will explain. Now, vanadium occurs naturally in soil, water, and oil. The effects of vanadium poisoning are that you have trouble breathing. It affects the lungs, so it causes coughs, nausea, diarrhea, stomach cramps. It causes mild neurological defects like depression and confusion. If you take vanadium or you ingest it when you're pregnant, it also causes birth defects and decreases growth. So it stops you from growing, it stunts your growth. Now, if you know Japanese history and just for example, just giving you example, kamikaze pilots in World War II, the kamikaze pilots and the honourable deaths. Now, I'm not saying that vanadium is an excuse, or vanadium toxicity is an excuse for negative detrimental behaviour, like, some of the outrageous unusual crimes that are committed in Japan. If you know some of their serial killers and their murder history and that sort of thing, like it defies human description, some of the things that go on in Japan, as opposed to the rest of the world. No country on earth is perfect. No country on earth is without, its horrendous history of crimes and death and that sort of thing. But with the Japanese, their some of their behaviours could be explained by the fact that their ancestors have been drinking this water that is laced with vanadium and helium, and with the effects of vanadium toxicity or vanadium poisoning causing birth defects and neurological defects. It could mean that these children are being born generation after generation with neurological disorders and neuropathic deficiencies, shall we say, neuropathic abnormalities that are then conducive to their behaviour later on, with things like taking their lives or taking somebody else's life, or doing things that the normal, average, everyday, balanced, healthy mind, healthy brained person, with someone with a healthy neurological system wouldn't do. And it's not an excuse for this kind of behaviour, but I'm saying it could explain a lot of the reasons why, Japan has such a high depression and mental health rate, exhaustion as well, and taking their own lives and taking the lives of other people in such detrimental ways that the Japanese have been known for throughout a long period of history. It could also explain why they're not known to be very tall people. While there are exceptions to every rule, the Japanese as a whole aren't known to be very tall people. Because of, vanadium. Now, if you are exposed to people who smoke cigarettes as well, you have a higher increased exposure to vanadium. So the Japanese, a lot of these Asian countries are, known for being big smokers. Now, the water with the vanadium and the helium. Helium is a colourless, odourless gas the exposures to which depletes oxygen to the brain. So again, the neurological disorders and the defects to the neuropathic pathways. So, because this water can cause disorientation and confusion and neurological disorders and, birth defects and the way the brain thinks and the way the brain functions, it's very possible that these babies, when they're in the mother's womb, there's a depletion of oxygen to the brain, which is giving them an increased risk of, being born with neurological disorders or neurological diseases and dysfunctions. So they're born with their brains not thinking properly. The neuropathic pathways make them do erratic things or, have erratic behavior later on in life that might be the reason why they do some of the things that they do in Japan. Helium exposure as well. Because it depletes oxygen to the brain, obviously when you don't have enough oxygen to the brain, it can cause death within minutes. The symptoms of helium poisoning are headaches, nausea, lightheadedness, confusion, disorientation, asphyxiation, bleeding lungs, ear embolisms, and it kills brain cells. So, now a lot of people who are found in the Aokigahara Forest who are still alive have been described as being in almost like a zombie-like catatonic state. They are acting erratic. They are, some of them are described as being like without life, like sad and like a zombie-like state, without life, expressionless, and because, it is Mount Fuji and everything that I've just explained, and if these people are absorbing all of that, and with the mountain calling them there, and the mountain having been absorbed all of that, and with it all being a massive conductor for electromagnetic frequencies, the biorhythmic parameter of Mount Fuji is going to be one massive conductor for confusion, depression, and disorientation and not thinking clearly, and being morose and low vibing and low energy, which would explain, why a lot of the people there will sit in their tents and have trouble deciding what it is they're going to do, and when they are found alive, they are they're described as being like, I want to, not normal, not normal, but they're not acting normal. They're like in a zombie, like almost catatonic sort of medicated state of mind, impaired thinking, you know. So because Mount Fuji is made up mostly of basalt, the composition of basalt is rich in magnesium and iron. Now, this is what I think, magnesium is a healing property, but in high doses, it's also very toxic. And if you've had generational exposure to things like vanadium and magnesium and iron and that sort of thing, over time, it's going to have detrimental effects on your genetic structure. And if it is being passed from generation to generation through the womb, again, this could explain why people are acting the way they are and why they choose to go to the Aokigahara Forest to do what they're doing. The mountain can be used to heal or to destroy, and the mountain wants to be used to heal. but it is only attracting the ones who are of the resonating at the lower frequency, who are choosing to be destructive to life instead of being productive in life. So magnesium poisoning causes muscle weakness, and depression, sleepiness, drowsiness, low blood pressure, which would explain the behaviour of the people that are found in those tents. Their catatonic state, their zombie-like state, their lethargy. It would also explain why people are so exhausted in Japan, not just because of the long working hours, but because they're putting this water into their body that is creating lethargy and sleepiness and exhaustion and muscle weakness, depression, um, nausea, vomiting. Excessive exposure to magnesium causes loss of deep tendon reflexes and can eventually cause paralysis. It causes hypertension, bradycardia, cardiac arrest, hypocalcemia, abdominal pain, bone pain, confusion, depression, weakness, kidney stones, abnormal heart rhythm, and eventually death from cardiac arrest. Now, iron, because basalt is made up mostly of magnesium and iron poisoning causes erosion to the tissues and lining of the gastrointestinal tract, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, bleeding, seizures, comas, organ failure, and eventual death. And people are drinking this stuff. People are absorbing it. People are drinking the water from the funnels that are coming up from the volcano. That this is what this water contains, and the rocks that the spouts to hold this water are all made of. And because this water is supplied to millions of people in Japan, and it has done for centuries upon centuries upon centuries upon centuries, it could be causing these birth defects that are going undetected, that are later on being triggered when their frequency is resonating low enough to attract the negative aspects of what that mountain has absorbed. It's then calling these people in, and they don't know why they're being drawn there, but it's because like attracts like. Now, people who go there who are ascending and of a high vibration feel energized, because magnesium, gives you energy, and it makes you strong. It's good for your bones. People who have like bone issues, like myself, I was born with a degenerative spinal disease because of my mum's cancer when she was pregnant with me. I used to take magnesium for my bones to help strengthen my bones. I should probably start taking it again. And a lot of people think you're supposed to take calcium for your bones. It's not, it's magnesium. So the positive effects of magnesium, when you take it right and you are of an ascending frequency, it's healing for you. It's good for your brain. It strengthens the neurons in your brain. It improves your memory. It makes you think clearly. But when you're resonating at a lower frequency, magnesium is toxic and dangerous. And because that mountain is absorbed it is soaked in magnesium and iron, if you're resonating at the lower frequency, because you're suffering from the depression and the confusion and the disorientation and the neurological defects, that you may not even know were passed on, from mother to child during pregnancy, you're going to be drawn to the negative aspects of that mountain, which is known for a lot of deaths. So when they studied Mount Fuji, they discovered an intense positive anomaly was found with increased amplitude changes with the emergence of fumaroles. The anomalies were electrokinetic in origin. Fumaroles are vents in Earth's surface which are found, in Earth's surface and other rocky planets where hot volcanic gases and vapors are emitted. So the fumaroles, they found fumaroles popping up um, this recorded anomaly, this unusual effect of fumaroles just popping up randomly all over the place that were resonating at, you know, really high electrokinetic frequencies, and then, you know, then lower ones. So it would go really high, then it would go really low. They were measuring high electrokinetic energy, and then lower frequencies of electrokinetic energy. Electrokinetics is when electric charges causes movement, or when heat affects electrical currents. It relates to the motion of particles or liquids that result in um, that results in producing electrical current. So all of this means is that Mount Fuji is a massive electrokinetic conductor. It's a massive magnet that is calling people in based on, because it has fluctuating electrokinetic frequencies. When it's high frequency, people go there and they feel great, and they feel energized, and they feel alive, and they feel strong and invigorated, and, you know, focused, and able to be more productive, and they're happier, and they feel ascending, which is why the mountain, you know, has so many shrines in that around it, and why the Japanese gods and the Japanese ancestors and their kings and that was so was such in such reverence of the mountain, because when you go there and you are of the same frequency as the highest emitting electrokinetic frequencies that come through the fumaroles and that, you're absorbing all of that, and it invigorates you, and it ascends you and makes you feel great. But when it's resonating at a lower electrokinetic frequency, it is emitting like a transmitter, like a radio transmitter, a negative electromagnetic frequency that is drawing in the people who are of the lower biomagnetic um, readout. So, you know, people who are in lives that they are unhappy with, in a place that they're unhappy with, in a job that they're unhappy with, you know, and they're depressed, and they're contemplating doing what they're doing there, they're then drawn to Mount Fuji, because it calls them in. It's like, you know, kinetic energy pushes out, so it transmutes, it sends it out. So it sends out a radio signal and says, come to me, because if you want death, I am the mountain of death. And that's not what Mount Fuji wants. When it is, you know, when it is reading on the higher spectrum of the electrokinetic readout, it is transmitting, come to me and I will heal you. So it depends on where you are psychologically, you know, whether you're on an ascending path or a descending path. Mount Fuji is either going to be what helps create you or what helps destroy you. And now that I know what I know, when I go there with my boys, I'm going to know exactly what to do. With my biorhythmic field generator, I'm going to know exactly what to set it on. In my hand, I will be able to hold in my hand, you know, a piece of earth that I will be able to amplify the frequencies to such that when I set it down to release the energy into the atmosphere, it is going to remove anything and anyone that is trapped there, and it is also going to raise the vibration and hopefully not only heal Mount Fuji of all of the tragedies that have taken place there throughout the course of its history, but hopefully I will be able to detract people from going there to do what they are wanting to do in terms of ending their life, and it will attract them to use the mountain to heal them instead, which is what the mountain is wanting to do, which is why I believed it called me in its dream. So I'm going to put links in the description box below of all the articles I found to prove everything that I've been saying. And if you're listening to this and you are going through that and you are contemplating whether to take your own life, especially if you are in Japan, I just want people to know that in my in the course of my career, I have never met anyone who has taken their own life who said they didn't regret it. In fact, 99.9% of them said that at the moment their lives were crossing over, they instantly regretted their decision, but it was too late to take it back. Death is not the answer. It's not going to make your problems go away. You will have to come back and have a redo to make up for what you've done, because your fate is supposed to be in the hands of your gods and not yourself. There is always an answer. There is always a way to get yourself out of any situation that you've gotten yourself out of, especially especially if it's having to deal with accepting the consequences of something you've done. If you are a creative empath and you are naturally drawn to the darker side of life, because when you're in the underworld stage of an ascension, you will go to the darker sides of life where, you can't see light at the end of the tunnel. I promise you, you will get out of this. It is a natural occurring state, and it is done to force you to work on negative aspects of yourself, negative traits, childhood traumas, past life traumas, looking at the cause and effect of why you are feeling the way you are. 99.9% of most creative empaths do not realize that the reason why they often suffer from bouts of depression and mental imbalances, and that is because they are reflecting what they've absorbed from other people and other places around them, which is where I come in as an occult scientist and why I do what I do. Because if you're around someone, usually it's within 24 to 48 hours of you being around someone who is of a lower vibrational frequency, you absorb it and reflect it back. So you are living out their depression, not realizing it's got nothing to do with you. You're taking on somebody else's energy, or you've been in a place where something negative has happened, something low vibrational has happened, and you've absorbed it, because we are porous, just like Mount Fuji is made of, porous rock. We absorb it and we reflect it, so quite often when you're around places, where there's been death, like battlefields or, anything like that, where there's known to be paranormal activity or depression or anything like that, you'll absorb it and you will think it's you, and you've taken all of that on and you've transmitted that energy out, not realizing that because you've soaked it all in, you are living the experience of what it is you've absorbed, which is why a lot of people are drawn to that mountain to do what they want to do. So it's not you. You just need to make better choices in who you're around and where you're around. And there are things that you can do to fix that when you are around those situations, which is why I'm doing two versions of the biorhythmic field generator. I'm doing my organic version that I'm going to take on the road with me, but I'm going to do a version for the general population that is, where you'll use batteries and can charge it with a USB cable, where when you turn it on, and that when you've been around anyone or anything that has brought your mood down and created you to be biorhythmically lower vibrating, you'll be able to turn my BFG on and it'll raise your vibration and transmute the negative energy into positive energy, or rather transmute the positive ion particles in the atmosphere into negative ones, so that you feel better and it lifts the mood and gets rid of it for you. I always say to people, count your blessings, not your failings, because there's far more greater things in your life to be grateful for than there are to be ungrateful for or to be upset about. This world is full of amazing wonders and beautiful things that you can be focusing on. And if it means that you have to spend time by yourself, if it means that you have to isolate yourself from people, that's not a bad thing, because why force yourself to be around people who are doing you more harm than good, just because they are relatives, just because they're bosses, just because they're friends, that's just because they're neighbours. It doesn't mean you have to be around them. Don't be around things that harm you, like with Mount Fuji. Don't put things in and around your body that you know could be causing you harm, because all you're doing is self-sacrificing for the greater good, for the greater good of people who don't care about you. Because that's basically what it is that you care about people more than they care about you. And you're putting yourself through all of this for people who have no respect for you, have no love for you. People who love you don't hurt you. Hurt people hurt people. And if someone cares about you, you know it. And if someone doesn't care about you but fakes that you also know it, you might not realize it, but it'll be the reason why every time you're around them, even though they might be smiling and acting nice, that if their intentions for you or their true thoughts of you aren't positive and genuine, you're going to be absorbing that and not knowing why every time you leave them, even though it might on the surfaces appear like they're being nice to you and that you just have that feeling when you leave them and you feel off, you feel down, feel depressed, you feel, lethargic, low energy, wanting to just curl yourself up in a ball sort of thing. That's not you. It's got nothing to do with you and everything to do with the fact that you've been around someone whose intentions for you aren't pure and honourable, and you've taken on their true essence and you've absorbed it like a sponge. And now you're reflecting that out into the world in order to try and heal yourself from it, to try and understand why you're suddenly feeling the way you are, and not realizing it's because of the person or those people or that building that you were in. And then, but it's okay because I'm here and I developed this science, quantum magnetics and biorhythmic engineering. It's why I've developed all of this, because now I have an answer for you and you know what to do now. And when I come out with my BFG and I come out with my shows, I'll be able to go to these places and show you why things are happening the way they are and explain it all to you and educate you, and then also show you how to fix it. And when I put my BFG on the market, you'll be able to buy it, because I promise it's not going to be something that's expensive. I would never do that to people. And you will be able to use it and take it to your home or office, and turn it on, and it's going to make the world of difference to how you see yourself in the world around you, and also how you deal with everyday life and everyday stresses. So if I can get this product in Japan, especially countries like Japan, and also like New Zealand, where there's a high suicide rate for Indigenous people, then I'm going to do it, which is why I promise I will keep my costs for these devices low and affordable to everyone. So I hope that helped. I will put links in the description box below. And I know for a fact my sons and I cannot wait to come to Japan. I've wanted to visit Japan my whole life. My son is obsessed with the history of the samurai. He's learning Japanese, so he's going to be my translator when we go. My youngest son is dying to try, he's obsessed with seafood. It's the Māori in him. And, the Japanese are known for their seafood and that, so he can't wait to go there and try all the food. I will probably starve because I have an egg and gluten allergy and I'm not a fan of seafood, so I don't know what I'm going to eat when I'm there. Probably just a lot of vegetables, but okay. And yeah, I'm a huge fan of Hayao Miyazaki, Studio Ghibli and all that. Like, I love anime. Tokyo Godfathers is one of my favourite Japanese animated movies. I love that movie so much, and of course, all the Studio Ghibli ones. So I also want to go to Hiroshima and Nagasaki for obvious reasons with my BFG, and I can't wait to. My son wants to do pottery classes, and because the Japanese are famous for their ceramics and that, I would love to be able to get my boy into a class or where he can watch them do it so that he can learn himself, because it's something that he's fascinated with. And what better place to take him to learn about this stuff than Japan. So anyway, I'm going to let you go now. I'll put the links in the description box below. I hope this podcast has helped, and I hope Mount Fuji is pleased with the work that I've done, that it has called me to do in my dream. I hope that I have honoured Mount Fuji and the ancestors that clearly called me there to speak on their behalf. So, in light of that, I'm now probably going to make a coffee. There's no point me going to sleep now. The sun's starting to come up. So, I'm going to have a coffee and watch the sun come up, which is ironically the land of the rising sun, which is Japan, you know. And I will speak to you later. Until next time, ka kite anō.